The Jolt. This is The Jolt with Larry Flick on Sirius XM-OutQ.
So, I got Carl Sandler in the studio. Carl Sandler from Daddyhunt and the Mr. app. And he was very excited to find out that this is what we call a bed in the radio world.
It was news for me, Larry.
And very exciting, though.
But I love beds.
He's lounging as we speak. So Carl is here to rejoin the conversation on the Jolt. He took a little bit of a time out to actually run his businesses, and he's here to talk love, sex, and all kinds of things. But we want to first bring you up to speed with Carl's businesses. He has the Mr. app, which you can add to your smartphone or your tablet, as I have. He has daddyhunt.com, and there is now a Daddyhunt app, which I've just added to my phone.
Yeah, well, what happened was, Larry, we launched Mr. and we thought, hey, Mr. will work for daddies, it'll work for bears, it'll work for a whole large community, but we found that the daddies kind of need a space of their own.
Yeah.
They need to know that everyone that they talk to is really into daddies. They need a place where they can kind of share. And the great thing about the Daddyhunt app actually is that we rebuilt in a lot of the features that you see on Facebook or on Instagram, so that people can share photos, they can comment, they can like, and that, the goal is to create more a sense of community that is really lacking on a lot of the apps, which are just, let's hook up. It's really designed a little bit to give a little bit more of a sense of like, hey, let's bring all these people together. Let's have a place for daddies to share and where they're comfortable, because, daddies aren't posting things on Instagram, even on Facebook, they're not really participating as much. But hey, listen, there's lots of daddy lovers on Daddyhunt who would love to see photos of you and would love to chat, and it's just kind of a good way to kind of connect. So we're very excited. We've had tens of thousands of downloads, and it's only been out for a month, and we're excited. It's only on iOS right now, but we'll have Android in a little bit.
So this is exciting. Now you can use your Mr. login. Yes or no?
You can use your Mr. login for now and access it, and you'll have all your email, but it'll be different. There's different people on Daddyhunt than what you'll see on Mr.
My instincts are telling me that I'm going to want to create a separate account for this.
I think you should, unless you already have a daddyhunt.com account, because there'll be diverging even more, I think, as the feature sets diverge and the user bases diverge, because the people coming in to Daddyhunt are different than the people on Mr. But we wanted to migrate people easily.
I'm going to want to project a different vibe.
Exactly.
On Daddyhunt.
You can be a top on Mr. and a bottom on Daddyhunt.
There you go. So So if you're using an iPhone, or if you're using iOS, is the more
iOS.
You can download the Daddyhunt app right now, as I have. It's on my phone. I'm looking at it right now, and the photos are good. So there you go.
Thanks.
So Carl is also a relationship expert, and that's a part of what brings him back to our studio repeatedly, because we like his take on relationships, even though he and I tend to wrestle, because I tend to be a little bit more like, shut up, I don't like that. He's very, very nice, and I'm not when it comes to this kind of stuff. It's the yin and the yang.
Yeah, it's good. Actually,
good radio.
While I was preparing for the show today, I kept thinking, oh my God, what the fuck is Larry going to say when I bring this up? I knew I was like, he is going to just go off.
And then he told me during the song what it was, and I was like, I have very definite things to say about this, because the topic is
turtleneck versus crewneck.
Right. Otherwise known as
uncut and cut.
Right.
But more specifically, it's not really about that so much as it's about some issues that sometimes come up when the person that we love, or that doesn't love us and our penis at the same time,
or all the things about us that are harder to change than
picking up your socks.
Right.
So the reason that in a larger sense, it's really what kind of sacrifices do we sometimes ask our partners to make for us, for a relationship, and when and how do we evaluate those, and both individuate and say, hey, yes or no, this is something I'm willing to do or can do for you, or no, I can love you and it's not something I can do. And it's in my life personally, I feel like learning how to understand where my needs begin and end vis-a-vis a partner has actually been a real big challenge. I haven't always known how to separate my feelings for love for someone or intimacy or the desire to have a relationship with balancing out what I need for myself. And so I think that the challenge, the struggle to understand yourself and to understand yourself in the context of a relationship is really one that is lifelong. And it came up because so I have a column, as you know as well, on Huffington Post, even though I haven't been really keeping up with it, but people still write into me all the time. And someone wrote in a couple weeks ago, and that's what kind of was the impetus. And I'd like to read part of his email to me. So this is the first time I've done this on the air, but it said, Dear Mr. Carl, I'm in a committed relationship with my partner of almost a year, and we've always had a great sexual relationship until recently. He's let me know that he finds it extremely unattractive that I'm uncircumcised, and that sometimes it turns him off completely. He's gone as far as to suggest getting circumcised and has been doing online research about it. I'm extremely proud of what I've got, so it's a little bit of a shame that the one person I choose to spend my life with is the one person I've met who's unhappy with it. I'm worried that it might have a negative effect on my sexual performance. At the same time, though, I want both of us to be sexually satisfied, and he says this is the one thing that bothers him about my appearance. This is a big decision, and I need an outsider's opinion. Wow, right? Deep breath.
Well, and I was going to say, and I have things to say about this because I've been in his situation.
I think that it's... Listen, I think that people in the gay community, in the straight community, but certainly in the gay community, have a lot of ideas about penises. Some people like cut, some people like uncut, some people don't like a curve. We are just penis obsessed, and some of these issues are issues that we bring ourselves, and they have nothing to do with how wonderful our partner can be. They are prejudices, or they are issues that we have, and they can be. I'm not saying that in this situation that's all that's going on, but it's a big issue, and the question is, at how do you deal with it when it comes up in the context of a relationship?
Well, it's very difficult because on one hand, the inclination is to demonize a person who says, change this pivotal part of who you are. Being uncircumcised, and I was with two men who were like, you should fix that, and my reaction was, to hell no. And because it really does, and I worry for this guy who wrote to you because it really does affect your sexual performance. Because it's like, love me, love my personal area, whether you're a man and or if you're a woman, and you feel like your breasts aren't the right size, or maybe they're not symmetrical, or this is something that women go through as well, and you really feel we're all, with maybe one or two rare exceptions, we're all really insecure about that part of ourselves.
Absolutely.
And so when someone says, I love all of you, but that part, well, to me, it's game over. It really becomes game over because there's no way you could ever have a really satisfying sex life, because for the entirety of the rest of your time with that person, you'll be saying, is he lying to me? Is she lying to me? And it's over. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's over, because fundamentally, unless you're the type of person who says, okay, I'm going to augment my breasts, or I'm going to circumcise my penis, I can, you will, and even then, you're going to think, I did all this for him or her. What have they done for me?
Well, I think that so
because my answer to the one guy who asked me is like, okay, so what have you got for me? What have you got? What are you offering up? What's on the table? And he said, my love. I'm like, oh, I don't have your love already? And he said, I'm like, goodbye. And it was over.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's, right? How it's interesting how to be in a relationship where you feel comfortable asking someone else to make such a huge change for you.
Right.
But then it can end so quickly that it wasn't so, it wasn't so permanent, right? So, listen, I think that part of being in a successful relationship is the ability to turn to someone else's needs and desires. It's an important part. We have to do it. We have to. I don't like the word compromise in general, but we do have to compromise towards each other in many, many different situations. So I think that what I wanted to talk about with this, there's a lot going on in this one ask, right? There's first the issue about how do we express our truth to a partner, even if that truth is really painful and difficult? So, and there are different types of asks that we do. So like we were talking, there's the ask of, okay, we have to go to my in-laws. I know you don't like my in-laws, but can you do this for me? There's the ask of, we're having a problem because, your cleanliness level is lower than what I need it to be, and I need you to step up your game and help around the house because to me I need things to be neat. There's shifts that we can make and that we can ask for. And then you have things like getting circumcised, or I have a friend who she didn't like taking the pill, and she asked her husband to get a vasectomy. He didn't want to get a vasectomy and have an operation, but he did it because they were, they've been married for 14 years or however long it was, and he made that decision that it was important enough to do that in order so that his wife didn't have to be on the pill. Yeah. There are times in relationships where we ask for different things. This is obviously, such a personal thing, and there's a lot of risks, so of course, associated with it as well. You don't know if you get circumcised that it's going to, he may have more trauma. All of a sudden he's bringing a lot of trauma to that area. He may lose sensitivity. He may change his relationship with his penis. You can't get erection for 6 weeks after circumcision.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like getting your hair cut.
It's not like getting
no,
your hair
honestly,
cut
it
at all.
isn't. And when people say to me, "How did you wind up not being circumcised?" Because my father was in his teenage years, and it was so painful that he decided that he would never have his sons.
Your father got circumcised in his teenage years.
Yeah.
That's did he have phimosis, or do you know what the?
I have no idea.
Phimosis is the condition where your foreskin doesn't retract all the way.
I doubt that was it. But I think it was really more kind of like assimilation.
I see.
And apparently it was super duper painful.
Oh my God!
And he resolved. It was so painful that he resolved that if and when he had sons, they would never be circumcised. Because it's that painful to do unless you're doing it as a baby. And even then, we hope that the baby doesn't remember the trauma. We don't know. But it's funny because in this general topic, I think we've all been down, and because obviously this, the cut or uncut's a metaphor for the larger issue of what do you give and what do you give up in terms of what your needs are. And I think the problem is that we assume that things are going to change, and so we just go in. In this letter, chances are pretty good that the guy who's not circumcised they knew that not everybody was down with the turtleneck, and yet they proceeded to have a relationship. And so, because the assumption is he'll get used to it, he'll love me, love my foreskin, or the other guy's like, well, I'll talk him out of it someday. But and so as a result, the guy who doesn't want the foreskin anymore is demonized. Well, no, it's his right to not want to be with someone who has that kind of an appendage, but what are you doing getting seriously involved with one who does?
Right. I mean, I can't tell from the letter whether they knew it from the beginning. It seems like it was something that just popped up, but he says they had an active sex life for a year. So in this...
After one go, if you like it or not. No, seriously. After one go, I mean, I think most people, unless they're just anti-relationship, you have, whether it's a one-night stand or a date, when you are naked, you think to yourself, can I look at this for the next 20 years?
Right. And my own personal experience is not all penises are the same, right? So I've been with uncut guys who have a lot of foreskin, and you have a different relationship with them versus other people.
Yeah.
And I think that it changes also. Sex and bodies and attraction change over time as well as our bodies change and we grow and change.
But he didn't like it from the first.
It's clear, but I don't know.
You don't ask someone to cut off
yes.
a portion of his skin if you liked it for a while. He didn't like it, and he thought, well, everything else is good, and it's probably big enough.
Right. I mean, the other thing that happens after maybe year 1 to 3 is that the limerence of a new relationship wears off as well, right?
Yeah,
so that there's,
of course.
The person who's asking to get circumcised, it may in fact be that, this is the issue that's forefront for him. He may think this is the issue that's affecting my ability to be in this relationship. But in fact, if they were really sat down and they examined it, there may be many other issues related to their relationship.
It's
that
never
he's not
just
happy
the
with.
foreskin.
It's never just the foreskin. Exactly. And so certainly,
Can that be the phrase that pays? It's never just the foreskin.
never just the foreskin.
But it's true.
Yes, and before, and certainly if this young man is listening in, certainly before even having the conversation about just to cut or not cut, I would encourage him to go with his partner with a professional to really examine their relationship and see where they are in terms of things. I think that sometimes in relationships we have to say our truth, but saying our truth and asking someone to do something for us are two different things, right? So, okay, let's just take these people at face value, and even if, let's say, he really has an issue with his partner's foreskin, he has to own it and tell his partner, listen, this is preventing me from having intimacy. This is this is an issue that I'm having, and if I want to stay in the relationship, I love you. We need to work on this together to see what we can do. That's very different than going to someone and saying, I'm unhappy with this, now fix it by having surgery. It's asking the other person to do all the work. But
it's also saying? It's saying, you're damaged, I'm not. In any situation, right? If I say to you, you know what, Carl? I don't like how much you weigh. So
I'm gonna cry.
See, you really need to lose that weight. That's me casting a superior judgment upon you and saying to you, you know what? You're not right. And because I have the balls to say this to you, I think that I'm perfectly fine. And so it's a power thing. And it really does set it up as perfect, imperfect. Whereas, in a relationship that has legs, it's like, I'm having a problem with this, and how can we resolve this? You don't give someone the answer. You ask for them to sit down and help you figure out the answer.
That's right. I mean, that is right. And I think that we have to, whenever you're talking about something physical about your partner, either because their body has changed or because you decided that you don't like something about them, but you're in a relationship with this person. And if in fact there is something about them that is, I don't know, that you can't get over on your own, and you have to bring it up with enough awareness and care, and you have to own it as your own issue. Even though the other person is still going to feel horrible about it, you have to own it and say, I am so, you have to say, this is my issue. This is just something that I'm struggling with, and maybe it's something that I bring from some history, that I've always been scared. It's something that's foreign to me, or I have this judgment about it. I mean, I don't know if you ever saw the Sex and the City episode where Charlotte goes to have sex with this guy, and
he's uncut.
And he's uncut, and she says, "Oh my God, there's so much skin down there. It's like a Sharpie."
Yeah.
Right. And I remember Samantha says, "Oh, I love uncircumcised penis. It's like a Tootsie Roll. It's like hard in the middle. It's hard with a surprise in the center."
Yeah.
Or it's people have different approaches to it and backgrounds to it, but yet it's just such a small part of a relationship in some ways, and it
becomes so big because let me tell you something.
Tell me.
Here's why it's done. Sorry, guys, but here's why you're through. He will always remember being told that one of his most personal aspects was not right. And he will, even if they come to some sort of conclusion that makes both of them momentarily happy, 10 years down the line, he will still remember it. And he will resent him, and he will hate him, and he will find a reason to get out of it.
All right. So I think that you bring up a very important point, which is that, I don't know that necessarily, I don't know this young man, and he might be the kind of person who he doesn't care. I don't know him. He could be the kind of person
Everybody cares about whether or not someone loves their penis.
All right. But all I'm saying is that
everybody.
The regret is very important. Whenever we are making a decision that does not come from our own needs, okay? So whenever we're making a decision for a partner, or in order to or in order to try to appease a partner or make a partner happy, one that's not coming from something that we need ourselves, it's always important to ask, is this something that I might regret in the future? Because regret, to your point, I think is something that does undermine your relationship, is something that's very, very hard to move beyond. And, if you think that you might regret sometime in the future with your next boyfriend or with, for whatever reason, taking on this surgery, then that's a real indication that you need to say no. To say,
would you get someone's name tattooed? If someone said to you, I love him, but he's insisting that I get his name tattooed, you'd be like, no, because you're going to regret that. No surgically changing your body for another human being. It just, no.
Some people do it, right?
I know, and then they're Nick Cannon turning Mariah Carey's name into a cross on their back. I mean, on the real, No. It's over, Johnny. It's over, Johnny. What movie is that from? Anyway.
No. I mean, listen, I think that this is the crazy thing is that in love, in relationships, we do, and we lose a sense sometimes of what we want and we need for ourselves, because we're caught up in this idea that we're trying to maintain the relationship, that the relationship is so important that we have to find ways to quote unquote compromise. And it becomes very hard. I mean, this young man, I mean, he's speaking to this confusion, right? Let's assume that he genuinely is confused. His partner that he loves has told him, fix this one thing and that will make everything better, right? We can suspect and imagine that maybe that's not the way things are going to turn out. But the confusion around when our partner asks us, it doesn't have to even be plastic surgery; it can be something else entirely.
Yeah, of course.
I had an issue with my there are some people and some cultures, right, who put the needs of their family or their partners above their own. That they believe that that's really actually the being a good person in the world. I come from a what's called a confluent family, right? My grandparents, Holocaust survivors, very old school. And, they really kind of raised an environment where the idea of being good means putting the needs of your parents above your own needs.
Yeah.
Like, that was being a good son, even if it was detrimental to you. And at one point when I was younger, I had to, really say at one point something that seemed minor but was actually really hard for me to do. I had to say, listen, I love you, but I can't do this thing for you because it actually hurts me. Right? It's not healthy for me to do it, even though for you it may seem like a little thing. And it was a huge thing. I didn't talk to a family member for almost a year because of it. And painful. But sometimes in relationships with people that we care about or that we love, we have to put our own needs above their needs and say no. And in this case, say, this is not something I'm comfortable doing for love or for you. And now what? Right? It doesn't mean I'm not comfortable doing it, so let's break up. It means actually sometimes holding your ground and saying, I'm not comfortable making this sacrifice. I'm too attached to my foreskin. Now what's next? Are you going to break up with me now because of it? Or are there ways that we can work on it together to figure out what's really going on? Clearly he was filleting him for a year, so, it's not like it's the end of the world.
So wouldn't you, if you're that person, wouldn't you be thinking, which is what I was thinking, well, he's going to go out and find the kind of penis he does want to have. Even if he's putting up with me because I'm rich, I'm famous, I'm this, I'm that. I'm telling you, it's like, can you convict someone with reasonable doubt? No. But once you have that reasonable doubt, it colors your every thought and move. It may. And if you go and make that kind of a big change, I mean, what you're saying, I completely agree with. But on a more cold, blunt view, it sort of sets a precedent that says, okay, what is he going to ask for next? And I know I'm not wrong because I've known those people. I've seen those relationships. And suddenly you're the Wildenstein beast.
Yeah.
See? In case y'all are missing me and Carl together, nice guy over there, mean guy over here.
Listen, it's not. I find it. Listen, I found it very hard to read this letter, right? Because I said, "Oh my God, I feel so bad for this young man who
he's going to be having a problem with his sex life for the foreseeable future, with or without this guy, because he's going to be thinking, do you think my dick is ugly too?
Right, and I think there's a lot of
take it from one who knows.
Yes, I think that there's a lot of in American
and my
culture.
Dick is beautiful. God damn it!
Do you know that these days actually only 57% of newborns are actually circumcised?
I know.
In America. But globally, very few percent of the world population, I think it's only 10% are circumcised total.
85% of men outside of America are not circumcised.
Right? So that number's increasing. Unless you're Muslim or Jewish, which is the predominance, it's
learn to love it.
Learn to love it.
Think of it as like a chewing gum.
People had a lot of the reason that people got circumcised their children is because they were afraid in the 50s, 60s, whenever, that their kids would be made fun of in the locker room.
I know.
That people were in America were just so didn't know it. So anyway, I mean, I think that the main issue here, I hear the music to wrap up. So, I think the main issue here really is, understanding when it is that you have to put your own needs in a relationship ahead of what your partner wants, and feeling empowered to be able to say no, especially when it's something as important as cutting off your foreskin.
And there you go. Carl Sandler, we'll see you again very, very soon.
All right. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, Keith.
Get your hands on the Mr. app and the Daddyhunt app.
Yay.
And we will see you first thing Monday morning. Have a great weekend.